Adrian Cole didn't think of himself as the kind of man people remembered. He fixed things, worked with his hands, kept his life small enough that nothing could fall apart in a way that mattered. People were background noise, faces that passed, voices that didn't stick. That afternoon, the city was unusually loud, crowded with traffic, overlapping conversations, and heat rising off the pavement. He was walking past a busy intersection when he saw her. A woman, standing near the curb, still and ordinary for half a second, until her body tilted in a way that didn't look like choice. She collapsed before anyone around her could understand what was happening. For a brief moment, the world hesitated, as if unsure whether to react. Then panic scattered through the street. Adrian moved before thought caught up with him. "Back up! Give space!" he called, already pushing through people. He dropped to his knees beside her. No response. No stable breath. Someone shouted for help, another fumbled with a phone, but Adrian wasn't listening anymore. Everything narrowed into precision and urgency. He started CPR, pressing into the rhythm of survival, refusing to let the moment end where it began. Press, release. Press, release. The noise of the street faded into something distant, unreal. Minutes stretched until they stopped feeling like minutes at all. Then finally, a breath. Small, broken, fragile, but real. She came back. Not fully awake, not yet aware, but present enough for the world to grab hold of her again. Sirens followed, voices returned, hands reached in, but Adrian had already stepped back. He didn't wait for questions. Didn't wait for recognition. He turned away and left, slipping back into the moving crowd as if the entire moment had borrowed him and then decided to forget. Him, Dr. Lena Marlowe, woke in a hospital bed with the kind of silence that only comes after something has gone wrong and then been repaired without permission. White ceilings, soft voices, machines tracking her existence in steady beeps. A nurse told her she had collapsed in public, that she had been lucky, that someone had acted quickly. Someone had saved her. The word someone bothered her more than the collapse itself. It felt incomplete, like describing lightning as light. She asked for a name, but no one had one. Just an unknown male who left before anyone could record details. No identity. No follow-up, nothing. But Elena remembered him too clearly for him to be nothing. Not his face in full detail, but the certainty in his movement, the way he didn't hesitate, the way everything around him seemed secondary to the fact that she was on the ground and still mattered. Over the next days, she replayed it constantly in her mind. Not the fall, but him. Something about that moment refused to fade. It stayed sharp, like a memory refusing to become background noise. When she was discharged, she didn't return to normal life the way she was supposed to. Instead, she began asking questions. Hospital staff gave her little. Ambulance records were incomplete. Security footage wasn't immediately accessible. Every path led to the same absence. Unknown, unidentified, gone. It was nearly 3 weeks later when she finally saw him again. A small repair shop 3 streets from where it happened, tucked between older buildings that looked like they had given up trying to stay modern. He was outside, bent over a broken device, focused in a way that made everything else seem irrelevant. Elena stopped a few steps away, unsure if she was imagining the familiarity. Then she spoke. "You were there." He didn't react immediately. Not surprised, not alarmed. Just still for a moment before saying, "I think you've got the wrong person." But she didn't step back. "Elm Street." I collapsed. "You were the one who helped me." That made him pause longer, something subtle shifting behind his expression, like a door in his mind opening to something he hadn't revisited. "Oh," he said quietly, not denial, not acceptance either, just recognition of something that had already been filed away as finished. "You saved me," she said more firmly now, as if saying it correctly would make it undeniable. He shook his head slightly. "That's not how I'd put it. It just needed doing." That answer should have ended the conversation, but it didn't, because to her it wasn't just an action. It was the dividing line between what had been and what could have ended. She kept coming back after that day. At first it was practical excuses. A question about something broken, a reason to return to the shop. Then the excuses became thinner until they stopped existing altogether. She would just show up. Adrian never invited her, but he also never told her to leave. That absence of rejection slowly became its own kind of permission. They spoke in fragments at first. Short exchanges about everyday things, weather, repairs, the cost of parts, small frustrations about the city. Nothing important enough to carry weight, but enough to fill silence without breaking it. Over time, those silences changed. They stopped feeling like distance and started feeling like familiarity. One evening, she watched him work for a while before speaking. "You don't talk much about yourself," she said. He didn't look up. "There's not much to talk about." "Everyone has something." A pause. Then he replied, "Not everything needs to be said to exist." That was the first time she understood he wasn't avoiding her. He was simply structured differently, like someone who had learned to live without unnecessary words. Another evening she asked him directly, "Why did you help me?" He stopped what he was doing, just briefly, as if considering whether the question deserved an answer at all. Then he said, "I saw you fall." She frowned. "That's not an answer." He looked at her then, properly. "It's the only one I have that's true." She tried again. "You didn't hesitate." He nodded slightly. "No, I didn't. Why?" He exhaled slowly. "Because if I had thought about it, I might have stopped. And I didn't want to stop." That honesty changed something in the space between them, though neither of them named it. Weeks passed, and what had started as repeated visits became something more stable. Not romance declared, not even spoken, but something building quietly through presence. She noticed things without him saying them. He always checked if she had eaten when she stayed too long. He remembered small details she didn't expect him to care about. He never asked her personal questions directly, but he listened in a way that made her feel like she didn't need to explain everything for it to matter. One night, standing outside the shop after it had closed, she asked softly, "If I had died that day, would you remember me?" Adrian didn't answer immediately. For once, he looked like he didn't want to choose between truth and silence. Finally, he said, "No." A pause followed, heavy but not unkind. Then he added, "I don't remember people I don't save." It should have sounded distant, but instead it sounded like a boundary he had never learned how to cross. Elena nodded slowly. "That's worse," she said quietly, "because I remember you." Later, they found themselves back near the intersection where it all began. The city moved around them, unchanged, indifferent. "You could have walked away," she said. Adrian looked at the road for a moment. "I did walk away." She glanced at him. "After I was safe," he nodded. "After that, there wasn't anything left to stay for." That answer should have ended it, but it didn't, because she stepped closer and said, "That's not true." He finally met her eyes. "Why?" She hesitated, then answered, "Because I didn't forget what it felt like to be alive in that moment. And you were the reason I stayed that way." The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full, like something unspoken had finally taken shape without needing permission. And for the first time, Adrian didn't feel like a man who disappeared after saving someone. He felt like someone who had stayed long enough to become part of a story that wasn't finished yet.